We're going to start discussing the Great Acceleration, and for this we're going to talk about the ecosystem services and earth services in general, and the connection with the rates of human progress or human activity, and the connection as well to the global scale changes in the earth systems as a result of dramatic increase in human activity. We're going to talk now about the erosion over the past 2 centuries of ecosystem services. Those benefits derive from ecosystems that support and enhance human well-being. The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment assessed 24 ecosystem services, from direct services such as food provision to more indirect services such as ecological control of pests and diseases, and found that 15 of them are being degraded or used in an unsustainable way. So humanity now cares more than the ongoing productivity of the Earth's ecosystems. And this is affecting the sustainability, and this can lead to a point where these ecosystems cannot sustain life for humans. Ecosystem services can be defined as the many and variety of benefits to humans that is provided by the natural environment and from healthy ecosystems. The classification is based on three ecosystem service types: provision goods and services, supporting services, and regulating services. And in some cases, there is another classification that is called cultural services. Provisioning goods and services is most commonly known as resources. These include the well-known ecosystem services of food, fiber, and fresh water, but will now also include fossil fuels, phosphorus, metals, and other materials derived from Earth's geological resources. Many, but far from all these types of goods and services have market prices, which can regulate supply and demand to some extent. Supporting services include nutrient cycling, soil formation, and primary production. All are necessary to support, for example, agricultural systems. There are also called environmental resources. Geophysical processes also provide supporting services that indirectly yield benefits of humanity. For example, the provision of fertile soils or the upwelling of branches of ocean circulation that we will discuss in other lectures, that bring nutrients from deep ocean to support many of the marine ecosystems and provide protein-rich food. So then we have finally regulating services. Two of the most well-known of these are ecological control of pests and diseases and regulation of the climate system. And this is done through the uptake of and storage of the carbon. These regulating services, also sometimes considered environmental resources, help to maintain an environmental conducive for human life, rather than directly contributing to provision of goods and services. Other examples of regulating services include pollination, decomposition, water purification, erosion, and flood control. So the accelerating pressures on all three types of Earth system goods and services that connect people and the planet are coming together in the first decades of the 21st century to generate a global sustainability crisis. And little is known about what would be the consequences, but that's what is being defined. If we want to talk about humanity as a driver of change, we need to look at the figures. And we can see the increase in many socioeconomic trends due to the humanity. This all began during the Industrial Revolution, and the measurements go up to 2000. And this is an illustration of how the changes have affected many things, from going to the construction of large dams, transportation, the population, of course, that's the leading one, and paper production and other things. But even things we have assessed this acceleration based on many different enterprises. So these things, this rapid use of resources and production of goods, it's what defines the Great Acceleration. This is another example to look at the great acceleration as to see as the humanity as the driver of change. This is the population change from 1960 through 2009, and in 1,000 millions of people, okay? So we have these wealthy and developing countries in red, and in blue, the wealthy ones. And we can see how the changes have occurred depending on the economic growth. So a simple way to estimate the overall impact of the great acceleration on the global environment is via the IPAT identity, where the impact is the aggregate of changes in population, affluence, and technology, and affluence as an indicator for consumption. So the idea behind this equation is that an increase in population or affluence will have a proportional increase in impact. Likewise, any improvement in technology will lead to a proportional decrease in impact. And this is why technology is so important on defining the final state of the Anthropocene. So now analyze the volume box that is presented, showing the overall impact, and the three axes represent the drivers of the PAT, right? The enormous increase in the volume of the box from 1950 to 2011, relative to the 1900s to the 1950 period, show the great acceleration. Also evident is the change in the relative importance of the factors. From 1900 to 1950, the population, the consumption, and technology had roughly equal effects, while from the 1950 to the present, consumption and technology have become dominant factors driving environmental impacts. In this figure, we present global scale changes in the Earth system as a result of the dramatic increase in human activity. The first one is atmospheric CO2 concentration. Then we also have NOx, we have methane, and we have percentage of total column ozone loss over Antarctica. And we also have natural disasters, and we have other factors that are being defined or quantified. So of the top 6 panels, increases in the 3 well-known greenhouse gases can be, by no question, linked to anthropogenic sources, right? And the role of human-made chemicals in the reduction of stratospheric ozone has been beyond doubt for some time. Three of these remain debate only on a human causation of the rise in northern hemisphere temperature and the increase in large floods. As humans are terrestrial creatures, we focus more on the planetary environmental things that are occurring only on land, like degradation and deforestation, or the atmosphere, rather than things that are happening in the ocean. However, in terms of planetary stewardship, the ocean is by no question important in the Earth's functioning of the system. So later on, we will see how this is what is the role of the oceans. The concept of Earth system goods and services is an effective framework to explore the important roles of the ocean. Providing services include food, medicine, and fresh water via desalinization. So let's go back to the first figure that we presented about the increase in economic aspects or technological developments. Some important changes have occurred in the characteristics of the human enterprise around the end of the 20th century. So from these figures, we can see that the humans are the driver of the great acceleration in the Earth. And now we want to understand what are the limits of this great acceleration. And to understand the limits of the great acceleration, we're going to start thinking on the concept of the limits of the planet.